Okay, so we can get going now. I encourage you to ask questions. I don't want to ask questions myself because I want to leave that space for the audience, but if we have time, it's good to talk to the speakers. And a reminder, there is an app you can download and use to share feedback with speakers. Please do that. It's very valuable for us and for the speakers. Okay. So our next speakers, Melisa Lang and Christel Sohnemann from Xing. They work there as agile coaches, and they are talking about empathy and empathetic communication. So it's also a nice follow-up to what Pavel said earlier. Please welcome. Mics, yeah. Do we have two or? Okay, so just give us a second. And this is going to be a different talk, a talk without slides. So I expect to get some, like, they're going to see some stuff on the stage.
Okay, thank you.
You cool?
I hope.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, you guys. I'm Mel. It says Melissa, but I prefer to be called Mel.
My name is Christel, and I'm really excited to talk to such a crowd of people.
So today, we're going to actually start by telling you what empathy is not.
And this is going to be a drama in 5 scenes.
So, scene 1.
You know, Mel, I've been to this meeting, and it was the same over and over again. Paul didn't stop without talking. It was a nightmare again. I can't stand it.
You know, that happened to me like 3 times in the last month. He keeps interrupting me. I'm trying to finish saying what I want to say, and he's like, always wants to hear his own voice. I hate it.
So, empathy is not telling your own story. You know, Mel, I've been to this meeting again, and it was the same story over and over again. Paul didn't stop talking, and he was talking and talking, and
This is what you need to do. You need to time box him. Get one of those time timers, and each person in the meeting has their allotted 2 or 3 minutes. So you have your 2 minutes, and nobody is allowed to talk, and then Paul can talk. And everybody has to follow the rules.
Thank you. So, empathy is not about giving advice. You know, Mel, I've been to this meeting, and Paul has been talking and talking over again, and he couldn't stop.
God, and poor you. I'm so sorry. Poor you. That really sucks.
So empathy is not sympathy. We have another one for you. So number 4. You know, Mel, I've been to this meeting, and Paul couldn't stop talking. It was the same business over and over again. I can tell you.
Wait a minute. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, Paul is one of the smartest guys on a team, and you should really like give him the airspace, because usually what he says is right. So I would shut up and let him keep talking.
So empathy is not discrediting someone's feelings. So here comes scene number 5. So Mel, it was the same business over and over again. Last meeting I've been in, Paul didn't stop talking, and everybody was rolling the eyes, and nobody said anything, and he was talking over someone's mouth, and it was, I can't stand it anymore.
It's feeling frustrating. How is it?
Yeah, it was frustrating, and it was like, I couldn't show up, and I wanted to contribute, and I couldn't.
So did you feel like you weren't able to say what you wanted to say?
Yeah, and I felt lonely, and I felt helpless. Yeah. And there was so much I could have contributed, but I couldn't show up. And there was no support I could get. So, yeah. So that made me feel miserable. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
So, what is empathy? Empathy is about holding the container for someone's feelings and needs. Is this okay here?
Yep.
Empathy is about building a space for someone that allows this person to show up fully.
Empathy is also about not fixing anything. So when you give empathy to someone, you don't have to feel like you have the answer or the solution to their problem. What you can give them is the space to express how they're feeling and what they need. And your job as the empathic listener is to actually quiet yourself down and listen to what the other person is saying and be fully present for them.
So empathy is about acknowledging that the way this person feels right now is totally okay. Empathy is about acknowledging that there is more in the world than this perspective you yourself have. It is about knowing you have one part, one view to this world, and the way the other person feels, you can put that just next to it, and it enriches it, it widens your perspective, and you see like there's more to this world than your small, narrow point of view.
And empathy is about letting the other person show up fully. So it's about giving space and as Christel said before, kind of creating this container for the other person to fully be themselves in whatever way they're feeling, in whatever things they need.
And empathy is most of the times not about using words, but empathy is about using the room of resonance you have, which is your body, and you use it and you lend it, you borrow it to help the other person getting connected to their feelings, to their needs, and bringing this person back to life.
And when you're empathically listening, if what the person is saying you don't quite understand, it's okay for you to try and guess what they're feeling, guess what they need. So you can ask them questions, and if they're struggling with trying to put it in words, what you can do is make a safe place for them to be able to get closer to expressing what it is they're feeling and what they need.
And it's always very important that this person who is receiving empathy is going to be the chief of her feelings and needs. And when you offer a feeling and a need to help this person coming back to their life and to reality, it is just a guess you make, and this person is going to throw it away and say, no, I don't feel like this. It's okay, because they are chair.
So how do we develop empathy in others? So it sounds really easy, but it takes practice. And one of the first steps is for you to really try and put yourself in the other person's shoes. And put your opinions and your judgments and your interpretations aside, and really just kind of stay curious and open to what that other person is telling you.
And it means being curious. It is never about being right or wrong and knowing how the world is, but it is about being curious and being willing to cross the bridge over to the other person's island, and being curious on how the world might look like from their point of view. Always knowing that you always come back to your island. So neither that you are right or wrong, nor is the other person, but it's of being willing to see for a short moment, being willing and to look through their eyes into the world, and with that get a better understanding of the richness that is in this world.
So I think we're both going to share a couple stories about some recent experiences with empathy. So my story is from a couple of months back, and I got a hip chat from one of the members of my team, and he said, "Oh, this other guy on the team, you know, he said he was going to do something in the morning, and when I checked with him in the afternoon, he didn't do it, and then he left at the end of the day, and it still wasn't done. And I'd like to give him feedback." So I promise this isn't about feedback, this is about empathic listening. And so he asked me actually how to give feedback, and I was giving him a quick course in NVC. But when he approached the other person on the team, immediately the defenses went up, and the other guy said, "You know, I don't know what you're talking about. You sound like my father. You should stop micromanaging and don't worry about what's happening with me. Take care of your own stuff, and you're talking nonsense, and just leave me alone." And so what happened here? If the first guy had gone to that other guy and opened it by being curious and trying to understand what was happening for him and how he might be able to talk to him, there might have been a better outcome. But instead, the walls went up between the both of them, and they stayed on each other's side of the wall. And it's taken some time to chip away at the bricks in that wall to repair that relationship.
Yeah, so I would like to share another example. This is quite a while ago, actually. I was running a seminar, a 5-day course, and when I came there, I learned that people there, they were not in one team, but half of them, like 6 people, were from one city and the other 6 from the other city, and they were kind of hostile to each other. So it was always the others that are the bad guys, and they are 5 days in one room. Course running with me. It was about software engineering, so a completely different topic, nothing about communication at all. And they had an exercise, and they had to do a little demonstration, and while they did that, the whole thing kind of exploded, and one man was standing there and saying like, "You have to be ashamed for these results, and I'm gonna explain you why. It is because the other people didn't let me work with them, and it's their fault, and they did bad results, and it's, you know, they're so ridiculous." And I thought like, oh my God, what's going on there? And then the other one said like, "Oh, I'm hearing this and all this hostile." And I thought, oh my God, how am I going to stop that? And then I remember there's something I learned just the weekend before. It was called empathy. And I tried to connect to these people's feelings and needs. And I said like, what I understand from the way you're saying this, I really understand that for you it is very important to get a certain amount of appreciation for the things you try, and that is important for you to that someone can see like how willing you are to contribute. And he was always nodding with his head, yes, 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 yes. And then the other ones started again, but me, but me, but me. And I said, yeah, and for you it is very important. That's what I understand, like to collaborate with your colleagues and to work in a team. And he was nodding again. And the whole group was nodding by that time. And it took about 20 minutes. And the whole atmosphere calmed down. And to be honest, I never got such a good feedback after that. They offered me a job to become their manager, whatever. I didn't do that. But anyway, they made an experience that was completely new for them. That was like they were allowed to show up fully, and it was okay. And it was not sticking with that, but it was like getting deeper into it and having this common sense of understanding after that. Like identifying, seeing that the needs someone else has and who has been your enemy before, these are exactly the same needs that you have. And that's when it comes to conflict mediation and when conflict's going to get resolved.
So, to finish, why is it important? Well, we had a wonderful talk to open this afternoon all about emotional safety on teams. And I guess we're just going to reinforce what he said. So it's really important on a diverse team that you acknowledge each other's, your interdependence of each other. And so on a team, not one person can stand alone, but you need all the other people on the team. And in order for that team to work cohesively and work together, you need to understand each person's individual perspective and where they're coming from, and make it okay for them to have their feelings and have their needs and be vulnerable.
Yeah, it's the variety that counts, the diversity.
Yeah.
Let me add one more thing. I would like to give another example of a trap I walked into. You know, when I learned the whole thing about empathy, I thought like, oh, this is a very good tool for supporting other people to get feeling better. Offering this resonance room and this container so they can show up fully. And I did that. And I gave, and I gave, and I gave. And I walked backwards and backwards. And there was one person I didn't care about. That was me. And I ended somewhere in a burn down. And so what I'm trying to explain is that if you want to offer this room of resonance and this support for other people to show up and being able to be there as they are, don't forget about yourself. And you only can do that if you offer empathy to yourself as well. Someone this morning said, like, you can achieve a lot by doing meditations, and I highly recommend that. And so always check with yourself when you provide empathy. Always check within your body if it is still okay for you, and if not, care about the person that is closest to you, and this is yourself. And then everybody is able to care about themselves as well. Thank you.
And that's us. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Mel. Thanks, Christel. We have some time for questions. Do I see any hands? I have a question actually myself. On one hand side, what strikes me is you describe it as a very simple tool. I mean, you just need to shut up and listen to the person. And on the other hand, it's so difficult and it's so rare as a skill. Why do you think it's the case? Why is it so difficult?
So a lot of us have this internal dialogue going on in our head. When somebody else is talking, we're already trying to think of our answer. And it's really hard just to slow down and shut up and just be open to what the other person is saying. I think there's discomfort if you're seeing somebody else in discomfort, and you want to be able to either, fix it really quickly, or do the sympathy thing, give advice. Those are all really, they feel like shortcuts, and you probably feel like you're helping them, but actually all they need is to be heard. Most of us just want to be heard and understood, and when you feel heard and understood, then you can start expanding and sharing more.
Yeah, and I would like to add, like, I think empathy is the thing on this planet that is required most. So most people really need it, and they don't know about it. And very often we are in this trap, like, when I offer something, I won't get it. There's only a certain amount, like $50, and if you give this $50 of empathy, you don't have anything anymore. So you don't realize that when you give, you receive back.
Thanks. Any questions? Oh, I need to run high up. I'll bring the mic because some exercise, once in a while is good.
So you've talked about the importance of being empathic listener and how we can practice that and do that ourselves. And how can we encourage others within our teams and companies to also be empathic listeners, not just by example? Or is there a way to do that?
And do I need to go down with the mic? Or because maybe there will be more questions or follow-up questions.
No, this is wrong.
There, you got it.
Okay. Is it working?
Yeah.
So the question is how to encourage others. Some things I tried was when I started the whole thing and identifying, like, I need empathy and I need it right now. I just said to someone, please, do you have some 5 minutes for me? I need someone who listens to me. And then I go into a room and say, like, now you're going to shut up and you just listen. And maybe you're going to guess how I feel, and maybe you're going to guess what I need. So you can guess that. That would be very helpful. But please don't say anything else. And that worked. And sometimes I corrected them, and I said, like, no, stop talking, don't tell your story. And it worked.
Any other questions? Oh, there is one. Okay. So if I ask a question, there are more questions. And if I don't ask questions, there are no questions. So I need to ask questions myself.
The previous speaker said that they tried to hire for empathy as well. Do you have some maybe suggestions or techniques how to spot it in people when you are interviewing them?
Do we have another one for her?
Is that it? So, a really good way to figure out if someone's got that is to ask them about a difficult situation they had and hear what they have to say about it. And listen for signs of kind of self-awareness. Because like Christel said, like, you start with empathy with yourself. So, and empathy with yourself is understanding what you feel and what you need. And so if you ask this candidate, tell me about a difficult situation you had in your previous job where it was just shit, or, things were going really bad, and listen to what they say, and listen for how much detail they give to it, and how willing they are to open up and share about that. And then another really good one is talk about, tell me about a conflict you had with someone on your team, or tell me about a conflict that happened on your team. And again, listen to what they say about, like, what the other person said, if they talked about the other person's feelings, if they maybe surprisingly talked about what the other person needed, rather than just what the other person did or didn't do. And that's a really good indicator as well. So So if you get people who are really kind of tuned into what they're feeling and needing and are aware of what their teammates are feeling and needing.
Okay, thank you.
We still have time if you have any questions. Okay, so maybe last question from me. Pavel also made a strong case for correlation